We had a long but good week last week in the stock market. Today, I'm going to be prepping you guys for this week and even the future in the stock market overall, what to expect, what news to watch, what stocks to watch, and some plays towards the end of the video. Without further ado, man, let's get started and let's make some money this week. With that being said, man, keep in mind that summer has started and next week might be a little bit slower. But we do have a few stocks that might move the market overall, especially the S&P 500 and just key tech stocks overall. We might see some bigger moves. And we got some sectors moving pretty decent and penny stocks breaking out a decent amount. But with that all being said, man, last week looked pretty good. Nvidia up 5%, Broadcom 3%. We had some good chip stock news. Oracle up 6%, Google 4%. 4.5 basically, and we got earnings coming out. Tesla making a little bit of a comeback, 7%. AMD moved pretty insane last week, 10%, and TSM and some other stocks to watch. With all being said, man, last week we had some great data that came out and honestly bringing the markets up overall and showing that tariffs aren't really hurting quite yet. Maybe next time, maybe in a couple of weeks and or a couple of days, we might see some more tariff impacts. But for now, we don't see any. But we do have US leading economic indicators on a Monday. Not really too much. Might move the market, but probably not. Tuesday, we do have Jerome coming out at a banking conference. Might move the market, and that's going to be an hour before market opens. So keep that on your mind. Wednesday, we got existing home sales. This may or may not move the market as well, but probably not. Thursday might be a little bit bigger because we do have initial jobless claims and some PMI data coming out and new home sales. So Thursday might be bigger with the data overall. And Friday, we got durable goods. And basically, it might move the market. But honestly, main thing that I'm paying attention to is going to be the initial jobless claims in the PMI and potentially whatever Jerome said. We might give more hints on the rate cut odds overall. With that being said, man, last week we did pretty good with earnings. Netflix beat, but they are kind of down after beating. And then we had some good bank stocks. But this week is a little bit bigger because we have Tesla and Alphabet reporting earnings. I'm personally pumped to see how Intel moves as well. But Tesla and Google is going to have like basically the biggest moves and people are already pricing it in. So keep that in mind. If you guys are options trading, you might lose money basically because they're already priced in and the premiums are probably already too high. But some other ones, man, on Monday, we do have Verizon, Domino's. You might see some decent moves with that. You can potentially make some plays with that. You guys can also screenshot this list if you guys want. Tuesday before open, we do got Coca-Cola. I personally got some of that in my long term, so I'm personally pumped about that. We might see some good moves with Lockheed Martin and also RTX, so have that also on your radar, I guess, if you guys are interested in those stocks. But Wednesday is big because we have Tesla and Alphabet. Maybe AT&T might move some other, maybe T-Mobile, Verizon. But we do have Verizon on Monday as well, so Verizon can probably carry over to AT&T. Maybe if we got good beats on both of them, we might see some bigger moves to the upside for both of them. We do got Chipotle and IBM. IBM is honestly pretty decent too. Next one, maybe Alaska Airlines might move a little bit too, as well with American Airlines. We also have Intel. Like I said before, I'm kind of pumped to see this one. I do have this one in my long term as well. So maybe it might bring the long term up even more. I did recently come out with a video about my long term, how it's going. So if you guys are interested in that, you guys can check that out. But speaking of earnings, man, analysts are pretty much bullish on earnings overall. And honestly, man, showing that the profit is going to basically beat forecast. So honestly, man, I'm very, very pumped to see how earnings is. And it might even move the S&P 500 and key tech stocks up even more. First thing in the description below, go cop yourself some courses, finally become profitable. And use that code. It's 50% off. Courses are already cheap. And with that 50% off, man, you're basically getting it for free. You'll make your money back in the first day. You guys don't want to miss out on this offer. We'll indeed get to some more stocks a little bit later, some more supports and resistance. But one that I'm personally watching is going to be Robinhood. Honestly, we were talking about it the other day about breaking that $100 level. And we finally did. And we've been breaking up a decent amount after that. I'm going to be watching that 110, 113.5. 115 and all the way up to that 120 for Robinhood next. If you do start breaking down below, I'm going to be looking at that 106.5, 104, and that $100 level. We break down even lower, looking 98.5 and that 96. But honestly, man, we might get some more upward momentum with Robinhood overall. And Robinhood is doing pretty decent. And if you guys watch a long-term video, we're up almost 120% right now. Palantir is also one that made a big breakout and honestly just been continuing. Honestly, I'm going to be watching that 155 to that 155.5 to that 158 all the way up to that 160 level for next week. If we do start breaking down though, look at that 151.5, 150, 148.5, 147.5 and that 145 level. Palantir is moving pretty decent. Another one is indeed Nvidia. Nvidia is still moving pretty strong, looking a little bit more bullish. Honestly, man, I'm going to be watching that 173 to that 173.5, 174.5, 175, 177.5, and that 180. If we do start breaking down a little bit lower, look at that 171.5, 170, 169.5, 168.5, and that 165 low for NVIDIA overall. But these are key ones I'm watching, and especially Apple, man. I've been watching Apple. I do want to see if it can make a break to the upside or to the downside. With that all being said, I do try to play my call options at around that 209.5 to that 209 level and just hold it. Sometimes we make a little break upwards, especially if you sell it the next day and maybe like 2 to 3 weeks out just to make it more safer. You can make a decent amount of money, especially if you make a breakout. I'm personally kind of pumped for Apple because I think like all we need is one news headline showing that they're upgrading their AI and or doing a little bit better with AI in general. And honestly, man, you could see it probably spike up $5-10, and I'm hoping to be into a play when that does happen. But honestly, man, I don't know if we're gonna get AI like an upgraded AI anytime soon for Apple, but if that does come out, it's going to bring this stock up even more. We could potentially break out of this range, like that 211.5 and that 209 that has kind of been bouncing off of. We could finally make a breakout to the upside. But then if we get bad news, we might break below this 209.5 and then get down to like 207.5. But honestly, man, this is some plays I've been making and making a decent amount of money off of, and it's been consistent. Man, with that all being said, man, the U.S. stock market continued its hot streak this past week with the S&P 500 and the NASDAQ hitting their fifth straight record highs on Friday, July 18th. AI chip giants like NVIDIA, AMD, and TSMC were the big drivers, fueled by optimism around artificial intelligence and strong corporate earnings. And honestly, man, maybe we'll see the same thing next week. Might be a little bit slower, but we might still see some pushes to the upside, especially those levels that I already gave on NVIDIA. Man, honestly, man, I think we can get some decent moves. We are still in extreme greed, and we're at that 75 right now, showing greed in the market overall. But sometimes we're in extreme greed, we can see a sell-off as well, so keep that in mind. Speaking of a sell-off, for those day traders out there, this is a chart of July trends to see most of the gains basically. And this is we're kind of on around the 18th to the 19th. We do kind of see a little bit of a pullback, a little bit of a slow time, and then a bigger pullback overall. But then keep in mind that towards the end of the month, we kind of go back up, breaking past new all-time highs. So that's why I recommend if you guys are option traders, do trade, maybe 2 to 3 weeks out, and you could potentially still hit your play if you guys do play call options. But honestly, man, don't just take the data as a grain of salt. Don't really trade based on it because we could still break up higher. We could still get some good news, but then at the same time, we could still get some bad news. But just take this with a grain of salt. This can help you guys out trading to make some better decisions. But $1 trillion in corporate buybacks and summer momentum keeps the bulls in charge. But there's a catch. Veteran investors are warning we might be hitting resistance levels, so some caution is creeping in. So like I said, it might be a little bit slower and or we might see tiny pullbacks come out more and more. So honestly, man, keep in mind and honestly, just be ready to adjust while trading. Markets are kind of rattled by the President Trump's announcement of the 30% tariffs on EU and Mexico, and it is set to kick in August 1st. Investors are betting these could be negotiated down, but it's definitely adding some uncertainty to the mix, especially as that August 1st deadline comes out. We might see a minor little pullback, maybe people, taking profits, not trying to lose money if the market does pull back. And honestly, the tariffs just look worse. So honestly, this is another thing that I'm keeping on my mind personally. And I do recommend, man, once that August 1st deadline does hit, we might get another pause or something, which I'm hoping, and that could bring markets up even more. But we could also get, maybe this time Trump stands on business. But what's on the deck for this week? So it's a big one. First, the tariff drama continues. Keep an eye on any updates, trade talks with the EU, Mexico, and China. Those headlines could move markets. If negotiations soften, we might see a relief rally, but higher tariffs could spark volatility. Second, earnings season is heating up. Big names like Google, Tesla, Intel, IBM, Coca-Cola, GM, and Verizon are reporting. Like we said before, investors will be laser focused on their guidance for the second half of 2025, especially how they're navigating tariff impacts and AI spending. So far, Q2 earnings are beating expectations by 8%, with the S&P 500 growth revised up to 10%. That's a good sign, but any weak forecast could shake things up. Third, key economic data drops this week. Watch for the Richmond Fed Index on Tuesday, existing home sales on Wednesday, and jobless claims, service PMI, manufacturing PMI, and new home sales on Thursday. Durable good orders wrap things up on Friday. These numbers will give us clues about consumer strength and whether the Fed might lean towards a rate cut in September. Right now, odds around 60%, Finally, Fed Chair Jerome speech this week could drop hints about the Fed's rate path as well, with tariff driven inflation risk in the spotlight. Markets are on edge for any signals, and you should be too. All being said, man, let's get to some support and resistance. But I want to show off BABA because honestly, right now, China stocks are spiking up a decent amount. And when they do move, they make big moves. But then when they do move to the downside, they do make big moves to the downside. So you can play BABA both ways. Keep your mind on news overall related to China and anything trade related as well. But if this move keeps on going to the upside, you might as well play it. And then once we move to the downside, you might as well adjust and make the money to the downside as well. So I'm personally looking at Alibaba. I'm going to be looking at that 125, 126.5, and that 130 level next. And then if we do start going to the downside, that 118, that 115, 112.5, and that 110 level to the downside for BABA. Please have your patience. Next thing is going to be AMD, man. We've seen AMD make a big move this week. We did see that final sell off basically on Friday for a lot of chip stocks. Basically, one that did hold up strong was Apple, and that is why I'm kind of pumped up for Apple because we are in this range and it's looking pretty healthy at around that 209 for the past couple of weeks. So honestly, like it hasn't really fell below that 209. Maybe sometimes some spikes down, but honestly, we've been coming back to this range. That's why I try to play my call options below that 209.5 level. And honestly, man, I haven't lost money on Apple yet this week. So honestly, man, Apple is one that I'm personally looking at. With that being said, man, some support and resistance for AMD overall. I am going to be looking at that 160. We did break above it. We were kind of above it for a little bit, but then we broke down below it. So honestly, man, we might either have another sell-off and or it just come back up, making new higher high. And honestly, man, keep on going to the moon. I am going to be watching that 160, 162.5, 165, 167.5, and that 170 level next for AMD. To the downside, 155, 153.5, 151.5, and that 150 level to the downside for AMD. Please have your patience. Also look at that 153 level too. Next one is going to be Boeing. The only reason is because right now we're kind of in a range right now at around that 227.5 and that 233.5 level. And if we can make a break above or below, it can either look bullish or bearish. So keep this in mind. If you can make a break upwards or downwards, you can play it both ways. And when Boeing moves, it moves pretty well, as we can see. So it moves in one direction for a couple of days, especially once they get news, maybe some sales or something like that. Next one's going to be the SPY overall. It did sell off on Friday, but it kind of came back a little bit later on. With that being said, we got earnings and stuff like that, so it can really move SPY overall. I'm going to be looking at that 629.5. 630. If you could break above that 630, that's going to be a decent level that everybody's going to be watching. We might either get a sell off of that and or break above that. I'm going to be looking at that 631.5, that 635, and all the way up to that 640 level. Last but not least, let's talk about crypto a little bit more. Bitcoin, honestly, man, we did make one breakup, but honestly, Bitcoin just been moving in this range for the past couple of days. So honestly, man, have your patience with Bitcoin overall. But with some stocks to trade with Bitcoin, first off, man, IBIT is a decent one. I personally trade this, especially if I want to get into some Bitcoin plays, and the options are relatively cheap. Another one is going to be MSTR. He did hint at buying more crypto or more Bitcoin to say, but that we did have a big sell-off. Might be your opportunity to get in. Another one is going to be Coinbase, of course. This all moves with Bitcoin in general. And let's talk about some Ethereum, because Ethereum is still breaking up and is moving pretty strong. A lot of people are getting into Ethereum. Honestly, man, there's a lot of good news related to Ethereum. And honestly, people are saying now there's more uses for Ethereum too. So this still has moves to move to the upside. We could potentially even see it at that $4,000 level. If you do want to make some money, ETHA, ETF is basically like IBIT for Bitcoin, but it basically moves with Ethereum. You can make a decent amount of money. Options are still relatively cheap. So honestly, man, this is one that I'm keeping on my radar. I'm probably going to honestly trade it this week as well. Maybe have like a 3-monther or something like that. Or not 3-monther, like a 3 or 4 weeker out, and then try and sell it like the next day or something like that. But this is one that I'm personally watching. And finally, XRP, man, we broke above that 350 and we're kind of holding it right now. So if we can hold above that, we might even see it get up to like that 3.7. Past that, I'm looking at that $4 level finally for XRP. We do have a full video explaining what XRP is and some better levels to buy it at. So if you guys want to check that video out, you guys can. But with that being said, man, good luck trading this week. Comment down below any questions that you guys have and what stocks you guys are watching. Let's get to 500 subs, and I'll see you guys in the next video. Peace out.